Hi there, Stampin' Peace friends. It is Thursday, March 20th, and I'm coming to you live at a different time today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for accommodating me on this time change. I had physical therapy about 11:30. Got home at 12:40 and I was just wiped out after that and needed some rest. But the good news is I'm making really good progress at physical therapy and starting to feel stronger, and I've got a ways to go, but it's all good news. While we are waiting, I should say happy spring. It's the first day of spring. Here in Ohio, it has felt more like spring the first half of the week, and today is back into the 40s, cold, blustery, really windy and cold. But hey, we take the warm days when we can, and we put up with the rainy, windy days as we need to, and spring is finally here. All right, how about a sneak peek of a new product coming in our 2025 to 2026 annual catalog? This one is totally awesome. So much fun. And I did an extra make and take session at On Stage last week. It was basically a pay to play event, and you could pick this bundle, or you could pick a floral bundle. And I have lots of florals. I'll probably still get that bundle, but I chose this one because now that our family has little Riley, I thought this would be a great one to use for children's cards. So there's a peek of that, and we'll be doing lots of fun things with that in the future. Totally awesome. Like I said, we'll be in the new annual catalog, which starts on May 16th. Okay, so you've got a while before you can get that. Today I'm going to share with you a short slimline card and show you how to make an envelope for it as well. And I'll be featuring the Botanical Textures Suite. I was about to say Botanical Gardens, but that's an old one. Botanical Textures Suite. I'm going to flip my camera around now, and while I'm doing that, please share this video or tag your friends in the comments so they can join in for today's video demonstration. I'm first going to talk very quickly about this product suite. It is an online exclusive. You will not see it in any catalog or publication. It is an online exclusive. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So it's called Botanical Textures. Let me show you the bundle first. It uses the Texture Notes bundle, and then it comes with a set of 8, I've got 3 of them out here, 8 dies in the shape of various size frames, and they have different designs in their edging, which is really cool when you use these dies to cut your cardstock or DSP. The suite also includes the mini corrugated embossing folder. It has this pretty white woven ribbon, super easy to work with. It's really soft and flexible, not thick at all, so really nice to work with. And then these neutral matte dots in 4 colors, white, black, vanilla, and pecan pie, 2 sizes each. In addition to those items, there are also 2 designer series papers in this suite. One is all black and white. So if you're somebody that likes to make black and white cards or black and white with a pop of color. That's one of my favorite things, black and white with a pop of color. We have these 12 by 12 designer series papers, also called Botanical Textures, just like the name of the suite. But then we have a second set of DSP called Woven Textures. Woven Textures. Now, most of the time with our DSP, we get 6 different sheets, 2 of each, right? This time, we're getting 4 different sheets, and you get 3 of each in this Woven Textures DSP. And that is the DSP that I'll be using today to make my Slimline card and a coordinating DSP envelope. So let's get started now. I have a piece of, let me double check my measurements, 6 1/4 by 6 1/2 early espresso cardstock. 6 1/4 by 6 1/2. Okay, on that 6 1/2 side, I've scored it 3 1/4 inches. Give that a nice fold. And there is my short, I call it the short Slimline card. A full Slimline card is usually about this long, 8 1/2 inches. I've cut a piece of 3 by 6 white cardstock for the inside. And then I've cut this piece of pecan pie, 6 1/4 inches by 2 inches. Okay, 6 1/4 by 2. And I'm going to adhere this right across the center of my card front. Okay, next I have this piece of Woven Textures DSP. I'm going to be using this side here as the front, and this measures 3 inches by 5 1/2 inches. 3 inches by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to adhere that to the center of my card front, just like that. And then I want to show you some pieces, some rectangles that I have previously die cut. There's only one die this size and I needed 4 of them, so I did it in advance just to save on a little time. One thing I'm going to mention is that I'm using the front and back side of 2 of the DSP. However, when I cut them, I made sure that I had the 4 different sides face up because of that pretty detail. I think you can see it on this one. See that pretty detail the die makes? I wanted to be sure that that was on the front side of each piece, okay? Looks a little bit different on the back. So even though I'm using front and back sides of 2 sheets, I laid out all 4 of the patterns before I even die cut them. So now what I want to do is add these 4 pieces to the larger piece of DSP on my card front. And to do that, I'm going to be using my multi-purpose glue. The reason being, I may need to shift or move slide some of these pieces around to get even spacing around and between each piece. Now, normally with our multi-purpose glue, I tell you a little goes a long way. In this case, since I will likely need to move these pieces a bit, I'm going to put more of a puddle right in the center, okay? And I'm going to set it in place, but not press it down hard just yet. Again, because I want to be able to slide these around if I need to once I get all 4 of the pieces on. So use that puddle of white glue. See right there, I already need to be moving things a little bit. Push my end pieces out a little bit more. And you see I've got pretty even margins around the outside. And then I want to get pretty even margins between all of the pieces. Don't have to be perfect. You don't need to measure, just eyeball it. When we try to be perfect is when we create a lot of stress and pressure for ourselves. And who needs more stress and pressure in life, right? Crafting should be fun and stress-free. All right, I have all those into place. I'm just gonna lay my silicone craft sheet on top and just press down just to be sure everything's in place and won't be sliding around anymore. So again, this was the die I used for these 4 pieces. I also cut out a piece of the pecan pie cardstock with this skinny die, okay? And I'm going to actually be using this as a background on my sentiment or my label. Let me close this up. So I decided I first was going to stamp the sentiment on white, and then I got to thinking that this particular DSP is light and subtle, and I think it would work very well stamping an image on it. And as you can see, it does work well for stamping an image. So I'm going to get out my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I'm going to die cut this sentiment with another size of the Textured Notes dies. And just to make sure that doesn't move around on me, because I want that sentiment straight in that frame, I'm going to add a little bit of Post-it tape, or you can use a sticky note, painter's tape, anything like that, okay? And then I'll send it through my machine. Whoops. Come on, honey. There we go. I think I just called my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine honey. Did I say that? I have no idea where that came from. I know sometimes people name their car, but yeah, I've never had a name for my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So you can see right here, I use 3 different dies. Okay. Now I'm going to adhere the sentiment to this piece of die cut pecan pie cardstock. Again, using that white glue so I can kind of slide it around and into place. I can flip it over and see if I've centered it, and that's another way for me to see if it's pretty straight. I'd say that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is add some of my Stampin' Seal, my adhesive, to the back. And I've got this piece of the white woven ribbon, and I'm just going to kind of place it and weave it back and forth behind the sentiment. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not quite centered there, but I think it looks pretty good. One thing I have found when I do this technique of putting some ribbon or twine or something behind a sentiment or a stamped image or a punched piece is I shouldn't try too hard because sometimes I'm trying to get it perfect, you know, even. This looks a little larger, right? And then I fuss with it, and then I keep fussing and fussing and fussing. And again, what am I doing? Creating stress for myself. I don't need to do that. So just do it quickly and easily. Limit the amount of fussing and picking up and placing it down. Just limit it. And honestly, it's going to work just fine. I didn't get a clean cut that time. Okay. And it is meant to look somewhat random, if that makes you feel any better. And then I'm going to use some of my Stampin' Dimensionals behind the sentiment, and I'm even going to go over that ribbon just to make sure that ribbon stays in place. And I'll put this right in the center of my card front. And then I'm going to finish off with a few of these neutral matte dots. I think I'm going to use the pecan pie. I'll use one large one in this corner and then two small ones in the opposite corner. And that is my finished short slimline card, okay? My short slimline card. So finished card size is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inches. 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inches. Now you can buy envelopes to fit this, and it does not require any extra postage when you're mailing in the US because it's the size, okay? Just a regular first class stamp or forever stamp if you're in the US. I don't buy those envelopes because I don't make this card size very often. But I still need something if I plan to mail it, right? Or even if I'm just adding it to, say, a wrapped package or want to drop it on somebody's desk or at their home, or if I want to mail it. By the way, I think this would be a great masculine card. Okay, so let me show you how to make a slimline envelope to fit this card. And when I add everything to my blog post, I will be sure to include the template I've made. I've made this template years ago, and whenever I decide to make a short slimline card, I pull this out. So let me show you exactly how to make this. You're going to need your Stampin' trimmer, paper trimmer, and you need a piece of DSP that measures 8 3/4 inches by 8 1/4. 8 3/4 across the top and 8 1/4, okay? Now, I need to do some scoring. So with the DSP, the long, I'm going to say horizontal position, but it's the long side at the top, I want to score at 3/4 of an inch. Be a little more gentle when you are scoring DSP than our normal cardstock, because this is much thinner than our 8.5 by 11 cardstock, okay? And then I'm going to scoot this over and score at 7.5 inches. Okay, so now I have, and it's a little bit difficult to see because of the pattern of the paper, but I have this smaller edge or smaller flap to the left and the larger one to the right. I'm going to turn this so that the larger flap is at the top and the smaller 3/4 inch strip is at the bottom. Okay, and this is important because it matches up with the other scoring and putting together of the envelope. Okay, so now I want to score at 2.5 inches. And then I want to score at 6.25 inches. Now, because this is very busy paper, I find it easy, before I cut away the corners, I find it easiest to go ahead and fold on those score lines. If it weren't so hard to see the score lines on this pattern paper, I would probably cut and then score. But in this case, I'm scoring first and then cutting. Now, as I've indicated on this template, I want to cut away the 4 corners, but I'm doing it at an angle outside of the score lines. Can you see that? Okay, so here's the score lines, and I'm cutting at an angle outside of each of the score lines. That just makes it a little bit easier to fold all the pieces in when you are putting your envelope together. It eliminates some of the bulk that can happen in the corners if you don't angle those. So I'm just going to go around and do that on all 4 sides. And I've got one more, but I just want to show you right here what I'm cutting away. Got one more corner to do. Just cut at an angle to that point where the 2 score lines meet, where they intersect. Okay, so now I've got all of those corners removed. And again, I'm going to work with the small flap on my left and the larger flap on the right. Okay, I'm going to flip this over. Now here's a large flap and a small flap. I'm going to fold in the large flap first, and then I'm going to put some adhesive right here just along the edge. That's the only place I'm putting the adhesive. Okay, and I'm going to fold it over, and if you do the fold in the large bottom tab first and then add the glue to the top of the top flap and fold it over, your seam is going to be right down the center. It's going to look so professional. People are going to be like, wow, where did you get a matching envelope for that handmade card? And then that's when you brag and say, well, I made that. Okay. And then I'm just gonna fold that down. Kathy Viverka, you are right. It does remind me of those security envelopes that we used when we used to mail in our bills. Okay. All right, now I have that finished. Couple of things I want to point out. When I make these, if I were using the card right away, I could just seal my envelope with the glue. But if I'm not using it right away, I'm going to put a piece of this teared tape so that whenever I am ready to use it, all I have to do is remove the backing of the adhesive and seal my envelope, okay? I was gonna mention something else. Oh, on the front, you're like, well, this is gonna be hard to write on. It's gonna be hard for the mail courier to read. It's gonna be hard for anybody to read. This is what I do. I use some plain white address labels that you can get online or any office supply store or big box store, and I can stick it right there, and it gives me enough room to write an address, and then I can stick my return address in the upper left corner as usual. Now, if you want to get really fancy, and since we've been using these textured notes dies, you could die cut a piece of white or maybe basic beige, whatever, a light color, light neutral that you think would go over this, okay? And glue it down, or you could even use the adhesive sheets on it so that when you die cut it, it acts like a sticker. And then you would address your envelope right there. So how's that for fancy? Okay, so what do you think? What do you think of the card layout and how to make the matching envelope? Again, I will post the template to stampinpiece.com when I put the video, photos, dimensions, everything up on for this card and envelope up on stampinpiece.com. Alrighty, what do you think? Great template to have, nice. Okay, Lori, I'm sorry you missed so much, but I know you'll rewatch from the beginning later, but thank you for jumping on and sharing this video. All right, if you are wanting to have your name put into the drawing for this card and the matching envelope, please type in the comments now. How about textured notes? Because that's the name of the bundle, the stamp set and the dies. Textured notes. Yes. Who asked that? Nancy is asking, will a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock work? Nancy, I assume you're asking for the envelope, and the answer to that is yes, because this is 8 1/4, so a little bit less than the 8.5, and then you would cut off whatever from the 11-inch side to get 8 3/4. Okay, and the card base I did cut from 8.5 by 11 also. Okay, and it measures 6 1/4 by 6.5 inches. All right. Okay, any more questions? If you want your name put into the drawing to possibly receive this card, please type in the comments now, textured notes. Oh, Jen, it's early morning for you in Australia. Well, thanks for joining us on this early morning. So I guess you're already at March 21st. You're the next day. You're ahead of us here in Ohio. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you find this demonstration to be both inspiring and helpful with some good tips that you can use in, excuse me, in your paper crafting. I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday for another live demonstration at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy spring.